Hello, PriceSmart. Welcome to our podcast, At the Club, a communication channel with our employees, where we will share valuable information, fascinating topics, and inspiring stories that you haven't heard before, keeping us connected on a whole new level. Join us on this journey and discover everything happening at the club. PriceSmart Inc. provides this podcast for general information. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are the personal views of the podcasters and their guests, and not the views, policies, or opinions of PriceSmart. PriceSmart makes no warranty, guarantee, or representation as to the accuracy or sufficiency of the information featured in this podcast. This podcast might contain forward-looking statements concerning PriceSmart's anticipated plans, revenues, and related matters. These statements are subject to risks and uncertainties that could cause actual results to differ materially, including the risks detailed in PriceSmart's most recent annual report on Form 10-K and other filings with the SEC, which are accessible on the SEC's website at www.sec.gov.
Private label is really an item that is developed, sourced, and sold under the retailer's own brand versus a national brand or a third-party brand.
One of the things that we always monitor is, what are the trends that are out there in the world?
We've always been focused on quality, but I would say over the past few years, we've really kind of turned that dial up.
We have a lot of that sampling that goes on here, and a lot of opinions when you get into things, even as basic as pasta, about taste on this, taste on that.
So I think, that's a big important part is visiting with the vendors and being collaborative.
I think it's ongoing communication and teaching. With my team, again, it's a very open dialogue.
The brand has grown to represent in the neighborhood of 27% of sales.
I love my team. We have great people, and all this stuff is done in collaboration, and it's done by those people, not so much me.
Good morning. Welcome to PriceSmart's At the Club podcast. We have another episode today, and I have a few guests this time. So today we're going to be talking about private label. So PriceSmart's private label and private label in general, member selection. So today I have a few people on the pod. We have VP of private label at PriceSmart, Dan Fairbanks, VP of buying, Guy Zavodny, and then Rich Rudolph, the VP of business development, so I'm told, of Rockline, one of PriceSmart's important vendors that develops a number of different lines of product that we sell at our warehouse clubs. So PriceSmart's At the Club podcast, as you know, is designed to be oriented for our employees, but also for our members and other stakeholders to learn about PriceSmart, to learn about the company, what we do, our culture, and our merchandise. And I'm really excited about today's episode because we're actually going to be diving into merchandise. And, when I think about our business, it really all starts with the merchandise. Sure, we need to find locations and build boxes, and we have our website and we have different areas of our business. But at the end of the day, we always say it's an item business. So it starts with the merchandise, and today we're going to have a lot of time to talk about merchandise, which makes me excited. So welcome, guys.
Hi, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. So I know it feels a little tight in here. We're in San Diego. We're at our headquarters, which is actually the first time that we were recorded here at the headquarters. We've been kind of each episode moving around the globe in our little region, and finally we're at home.
Good to bring it home.
Yeah, exactly. Good to bring it home. So maybe let's kick it off. If each of you, starting with Dan, if you could just introduce yourself and share with our listeners a little bit about where you come from and how long you've been with your respective organizations, and it'd be great to hear a bit about each of you.
Sure. I'm Dan Fairbanks. I oversee the private label development team here at PriceSmart. I've been with the company about 12 years now. Prior to that, I started in the retail industry. Actually, it was a high school job with a retailer called Safeway, large grocery chain in the U.S. Worked in various positions there. Moved on to a company called Fresh and Easy Markets and learned a lot about private label with them. They're a division of Tesco, which is a UK-based company, very big in private label, and I learned a lot from them about the importance of developing a private label brand. And then, unfortunately, our business model wasn't really going to work out. So I found the opportunity at PriceSmart.
I remember Fresh and Easy. I remember when they closed locations here in San Diego.
Yeah. It was unfortunate. They had a good idea, but it just was maybe the wrong time. There was a few issues. But, I learned a lot from them, and it was cool. So I was able to take that and come here, and PriceSmart was interested in building the brand here, the member selection brand. So I joined about 12 years ago, and I've been working with building a team, and we've built up a nice portfolio of products.
Great. And how many people are on your team now?
We have 12.
Great.
So I started
One for each year.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, I started with just two of us. Carol Sherwood was and myself when I first started, and then we slowly built it up, and now we have 12 people, and we're diversified between San Diego, Miami, and in country. So we have someone in Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Colombia, and Trinidad.
Right. And now the brand has grown to represent in the neighborhood of 27% of sales.
Yep.
Yeah. It's come a long way. So, Guy, go ahead.
I'm Guy Zavodny, Vice President of U.S. Foods Buying. I've worked for the Price family for over 30 years. Started at a Price Club, pushing carts and stocking shelves. When we started PriceSmart, I worked in country and helped open some of the original buildings and operations. Did that for a number of years, came into the buying fold probably 15 years ago now. So now I help a group of the buyers on the foods team, and happy to be here doing this.
I didn't realize how much of your time was in operations.
Majority of it, actually. I think we're getting about even now where I'm split between operations and buying as far as my career, but that's where I started, was operations for Price Club back in the day on the floor. And then when we started PriceSmart again, was operator, opening buildings, and it's great moving around.
Great background and base of knowledge to be good at buying.
It gives a good breadth of look of how we do things.
Absolutely. All right, Rich?
Yeah, so Rich Rudolph, I work at Rockline. I've been there just about 34 years. Really the second job I had out of college. My first job was at Kimberly-Clark. So I worked for Kimberly-Clark for 3.5 years, came to Rockline. I've had the good fortune to call on just about every retailer at one time or another in the country, and really have an affinity for the club channel. It's just my favorite because it's so unique. And Rockline is primarily private label products. So started started calling on Guy in 2010. So it must have been right after you started in the buying. Called on him for 4 years before I sold him my first member selection item.
You were persistent.
Guy was gracious enough to let me keep coming back. So I said, I'm going to keep coming back till he tells me not to. So fortunately, he's never done that.
Well, I mean, now you're in.
No,
You have some great merchandise that you've helped us develop. And where is Rockline based?
We are based out of Sheboygan, Wisconsin, directly between Milwaukee and Green Bay.
Great.
Right on Lake Michigan.
So thanks for coming in.
Yeah, no worries.
It's easy to get Rich to come visit in January.
I understand. Yeah, we're recording just after the New Year, I guess, huh? Yeah. So it's probably not. And there's a big storm.
Single digits temperature when I left.
Enjoy the Santa Ana weather here.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think, just to kick it off, thinking at a really high level, what is a private label, and why for the club business is the private label an effective strategy? What are we trying to do with private label?
Yeah, well, a private label is really an item that is developed, sourced, and sold under the retailer's own brand versus a national brand or a third-party brand. And what it allows us to do is really define our own specs for quality and offer better value to our members. And so, I like to actually refer to it as, rather than private label, member selection should be considered PriceSmart's exclusive private brand. Because it really is a brand, and it's really one of our company's most important brands. And as we mentioned, it represents a little over 25% of our sales. So it's a significant piece of our business. And as we develop this portfolio, it really, the purpose and the reason why we really do it is to deliver better value to our members.
Right. And so when we develop a private label, we have a private label team. And are you guys actually buying the product, or what do you guys do?
So I would look at it as we collaborate with the buying team, but we handle the development piece, which is very technical. There's a lot of specifications, technical details that have to go into the packaging. So we do that in collaboration with buying, but that's the accountability of our team, is to develop the products. And then the buying team actually does the buying and merchandising of
Right. So you have food scientists, quality assurance, packaging, designers, versus buying, which is really more on the buying widgets of
Exactly. And it's a collaborative process. We may go to the private label team saying, hey, we need to develop this private label product because we can't source it or it's not appropriate for our markets. So it's a collaborative process. But once it's developed, there's kind of a handoff to the buying team.
Right. And so when you think about quality and the kind of products that you develop in private label, I mean, today we're going to dive in a little bit later about wipes and some of the fiber products that Rockline does. But I mean, there's all sorts of merchandise that we have in member selection. Is there anything recently that we've sent down to our warehouse clubs that you're particularly excited about, or that, you know, is something that surprised you that it did well?
Yeah, well, I think so. We've always been focused on quality, but I would say over the past few years, we've really kind of turned that dial up and really become more confident in providing a great value and quality for our
Premiumizing the offerings that we've had, because, you know, value can be represented in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Cost isn't all about value.
Yeah, so there's a few things that go into it.
For sure. Quality, I think, is such a keystone of what we've focused on our private label. That's always the first conversation, is we want to make sure that it's the best we can offer, whatever that means within that category.
So is there anything that we've sold recently that you're excited about that surprised you?
Yeah, well, we actually have several products here. This coffee is actually it's produced in Colombia, and this is actually it's our number one coffee SKU in the company. It's an instant coffee, but the thing that's cool about this is we operate in a major growing region for coffee, so we're able to source it directly from the region, package it down there, and then ship it into our other markets. But it does surprisingly well, and it compares to Juan Valdez, and it's at a 25% better value. So it's, you know, it really offers great value and an equal or better quality than the national brand.
That's great. So that's an instant coffee.
Yeah, and it's more premium than what the U.S. might be used to in instant coffee, because you kind of think of it as.
I've tried that, and it's actually very good. And I'm not an instant coffee guy. Yeah.
So some of these, you know, these products are. You know, and then another one.
I was going to say, the bar soap was a shocking one for me. Sometimes private label team or the buyers will come to me and they want to develop a product. And often I'm super enthusiastic. Sometimes I'm a little less than enthusiastic. And the bar soap, I was like, it's bar soap. I mean, but the value it represents, the quality, the packaging that came with it, it's ranking in the couple bar soaps that we're running now. And I think it's going to continue to grow and probably become the number one bar soap we represent on the floor. Wow. It's a cool product. It's a great hand feel. It really does a nice job, but the value that it represents, again, both from a quality perspective, the packaging and the pricing, is what really made that one a winner.
That's exciting. And does the private label team also produce and develop non-foods products?
We do. Yeah. So, in fact, we have a couple items back here.
It's okay. I could see it's luggage.
Yeah.
Like people that aren't.
So we have. Well, here, I'll hold this up a little bit.
All right, we can take.
But we have a luggage set coming that's been developed by the non-foods team, and it's a new introduction, a new category for us in travel. We haven't done this before, but it offers a fantastic value. So it's a set of 2 pieces for $139.99 is the target price, but the comparable branded item is $249.99. So it's a 44% better value.
Wow.
And the materials that are used are more premium than some of those brands. So it's 100% polycarbonate. Versus the brands are a blend, and so sometimes they're a little more fragile. So we're truly offering something better. And in fact, I needed some luggage for the recent holidays, and I borrowed a prototype that we had here, and I was super impressed. It was very solid. It moves very smoothly through, you know, as you roll it.
Yeah, they're light. The handles are super comfortable.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into developing a private label product, and it sounds like the buyers and the private label team have to work closely to identify first what products are an opportunity to be private label, and then ensuring that the specs and the design and everything is suitable for the market. And I can imagine that one of the things that's quite difficult is that we're in 13 markets. So to create a one size fits all is probably not that easy. So thinking about, there's a lot of stuff that goes into a private label. And one of the things I'm hearing as a theme is collaboration. And there's a party that we haven't talked about yet, which is the vendor. And I'm curious, just from your perspective, you know, how is it working with, it doesn't have to just be PriceSmart, but when you think about a club business, what makes a club business different in terms of the level of collaboration, the amount that you have to work together, and really, you know, what's different about working with a club?
Well, the club is different because of the way they merchandise, right? The product typically goes on a pallet, and the pallet's dropped in the run, right? And merchandise right off of that versus a traditional store that's off of a shelf. Yes, exactly. So I think a lot of suppliers, they don't really understand the club business unless they're engaged in it. Because remember, the club business is a very narrow scope of products that
That's right.
that they have.
Because we have maybe 3,000 SKUs as compared to 10, 20, 40,000 SKUs.
150,000 at like a big Walmart. It's like a Walmart, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So it's a,
And just to stop for a second, 3,000 versus 150,000. Yeah, this is a very, very big difference. And we still do tremendous volume of 3,000 SKUs.
That's the beauty of what your grandfather created, right? It's fewer SKUs, but very high tonnage.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, what's in it is really that tonnage and scale that you're putting into a single or a very
Curated selection.
right. It has to be curated, right? I mean, when I look at our particular portfolio, you look at baby wipes, you carry 2 SKUs of baby wipes in your clubs. You go to like one of those big box super centers, they may carry 70 or 80.
Wow.
Right. So you really have to be focused and design a product for the greater and broader member.
So let's talk about baby wipes.
Okay.
So this is one of our best-selling, we call it a consumable, even though it's a single use, but it still falls in the consumable category. And how do we come to developing that product?
Yeah.
We can take a look at baby wipes, right?
Yeah.
We had a vendor at the time that wasn't necessarily meeting our needs. I had young children at the time, so I was super focused on baby wipes because I was going through a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm right there right
now.
Yeah.
And you find ones that don't work and ones that do, and so we just had a conversation about baby wipes.
Right. So I had a blueprint, right? Because I knew what was in your club at the time. And Guy, the direction that he gave me is, we're not going to go backwards. We want to go better. Okay. So that's what started me on the path. And what's unique about that product is everything is different than what you'd find in a traditional store. So it starts with having a larger sheet, but you call out on the package, you can see right up in the right corner, called extra large.
Right.
So the sheet size is 7 by 7.75. Okay. A typical baby wipe that you'd find from the national brand would be 7 by 7. So you can see you're double digits bigger in terms of the sheet size. Then you look at the weight. We call it the basis weight, so it's how heavy the sheet is.
And would that show up as like almost like the thickness of the feel of the sheet?
It definitely has to deal with the hand feel.
Mm-hmm.
Caliper would be the thickness.
Okay.
But
I noticed it though. No one wants a hand.
Right, because you don't want to have
especially if you're through too. Yeah.
So we went with a 58 gram base sheet, where a typical baby wipe in the U.S. would be 50 GSM. So you're talking 16% heavier. And then you look at the fiber blend on there. A typical fiber blend would be 70% polyester and 30% rayon. We went with 50% rayon and 50% polyester. So we added more rayon in there, which gives it a different hand feel. Okay, it's a more expensive fiber. Polyester is a lower cost fiber. Rayon's but it's
the usability factor. We were able to give a texture to it.
Yeah, it's embossed with a big dot emboss. So there's a lot of factors that went in there to create
the perfect baby wipe.
Right.
We like to think so. And then the components for the wetness to it and all that, we went through a lot of machinations of that to make sure
the count.
The count's big. The components that are involved in it, we made sure we made it as clean as possible. There's things you have to have, preservatives and things, but we really kind of refined that list to get to the cleanest baby wipe we can develop and still have the efficacy we wanted.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that's striking, just hearing, and I'm sure there's details that we haven't talked about in terms of like the packaging itself and the way that this thing opens.
Yeah.
But the level of detail required when we're talking about, a single SKU and the volume that this SKU does. And how much work went into that. How long did it take to develop the product? I'm just curious.
Well, it took us, we took a lot of components that we've done with others and then married them up together. So it took us probably 9 months to get the optimum, but we had a good target. We had a good starting point
Right.
as to where we wanted to go.
I'd say it's always an item that we're improving too. We haven't stagnated at what we started with. We've made a number of improvements over the years to make sure that wipe stays at the cutting edge of baby wipe technology, but trying to make sure it's always the best wipe we can offer. There's been a number of iterations.
I mean, so some of the things that we did since we started is we added, and we'll talk a little bit later about innovation, but one of the things that we always monitor is, what are the trends that are out there in the world? One of the things for Rockline is we have manufacturing sites in Europe, Asia, and North America. So we get a real global perspective on what's happening, and we take those learnings and we bring them in. So one of the things is sustainability, right? So on the wood pulp portion of that non-woven, we went and we put FSC certified. So it's
That we gasifies sustainable or
right. So that the member knows that those fibers are coming from a sustainable.
and that's on the packaging.
It's on the package. It's on the outside of the box as well.
Okay, very good.
In on there, but it's something that that you can play up and you can make it more of a corporate mantra instead of an item mantra.
And it is a corporate mantra, and it's an important part. And there's costs associated with doing those things, but I think it's money well spent. And I think our members appreciate the focus on the sustainability factor that we're taking into our product.
Yeah, one of the things that we're working on to try and improve also is the base sheet, where we remove the plastic and make it so it's a plastic free, putting post-consumer recycled content into the film. So there formulation, making it even fewer ingredients. So yes, that's what we call a film, right? So it says, hey, that's 100% virgin. And one of the things that we're looking at is,
So this is a P. What is the film made out of?
it's a 2-layer PET. And it's polyethylene, and I'm not sure the other one, but it's a multi.
PET.
Yeah, it's a multi-layer film, and what we're looking at is making that, putting 25% post-consumer recycled content into that. So instead of being 100% virgin,
That's great.
yeah,
And it's all about those incremental improvements that are moving us in the right direction,
right,
without impacting the value that we're able to offer the member.
the quality for sure.
Well, yeah, that conversation a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and the numbers, speak for themselves. It's the number one selling baby wipe that you carry. We define the way we look at it is how we look at quality over price is how we define value.
I agree.
It's the
relationship.
and that's the way we look at it. So we're always looking for that to drive better value.
I think our members, that's a great example of that, 'cause our members recognize that, because from a fiscal standpoint and value on shelf,
Yeah.
it's not a dramatic difference in price on a per wipe basis that you see on shelf on that particular item. But the quality trade up, our members obviously digest it and understand.
Well, as a consumer, in November, I spent a month with my family in Costa Rica, and we have at the time he was 4 months old, about 4 months old. So we gone through a lot of diapers and a lot of wipes. And for us, I mean, once we got going with this wipe, we were not going to buy the Huggies wipe at PriceSmart.
And that's,
Which is, a lot of families are good with Huggies, and that's fine, but this is a great product.
Yeah.
And we brought some hump, actually, because we liked it so much. That's awesome. So
Well, and the reason being is it's bigger, it's thicker, it's stronger. It's got,
and not only that, but then also I think what a lot of families worry about with baby wipes is also chemicals, scents. I mean, we're talking about a very young child, and you want to have minimal,
very polarized,
right? Minimal unnecessary kind of additives in there.
the ingredient list, if you go through on the box, we call out why each ingredient is there. So it's not just this random list of ingredients. This is here for this. We try to put them in English so you can understand what the ingredients are.
Or Spanish.
we did them both.
We did, for sure, English and Spanish. So as a consumer, our members can flip it over and go, oh, here's the list of ingredients. I know what that is. And then we explain why it's there.
So just taking a step back, because I know we dove deep on the product.
Yeah.
I know we can. But just, about Rockline more generally, can you tell us a little bit just about your company? And it sounds like you have a very similar ethic to ours in the sense that you're always trying to be better and innovate and learn. And just, I'd love to learn a little bit more background about Rockline.
So it's a family-owned business that was established in 1976. So just to have we're going to be 49.
6 years, Price Club.
Yep. 49 years old this year, April 1st. And we started with coffee filters. And got into that business, and we gradually grew into be selling everybody that there was coffee filters. So we recognized that we needed to get in if we wanted to continue to grow into the other categories. So we got into the wet wipe business, and you may say, well, how did that work, right? Baby wipes. Well, the similarity is they're both cellulosic based products, and they were both sold through the same distribution channels, right? So we sold them through mass and club and grocery and all the same outlets. So we already were a vendor of record with a lot of customers. And so that's how it tied in. It was disposable, right? Mm-hmm. Which is what we focus on. It's private label, which is our predominant focus of business. So it had all the similarities. And today we've got into a lot of other categories. You can hardly go down the supermarket aisle and not see a wipe, right? You see disinfecting wipes, flushable wipes, automotive wipes, feminine hygiene, incontinent. I mean, pet. I can go on and on. It's just the proliferation of the wipe category. So today we have roughly 2,500 associates. We have 9 manufacturing facilities. We operate in 3 continents. We have North America, obviously, is our home base and our strongest. We also have a manufacturing facility in the United Kingdom, and then we have a joint venture in China. And so our goal is to provide high quality products to the existing customer base that we have. And we're a vendor of record, like with almost every retailer in the country. We just don't sell them all everything.
Sure. And that's a really, first, congratulations. It's a wonderful story. And one thing that is striking to me is, and that's interesting, is that the development of Rockline kind of coincided with the development kind of trajectory of the big box in the United States. With the 70s was really like the heyday of the big box, going into the category killer. And now I'm curious, just looking at how retail has evolved today with now, going from multi-channel, now omni-channel, integrated retail. Have you seen a change in your business as things have shifted to on more retail, at least in the United States, being represented by online shopping? And how has that changed your business?
Well, it's interesting. It's actually a very astute observation, because we were just talking about this with the year end and how our business has migrated. If you look at it, the classes of trade have really changed, right? I'm speaking only for our products, but club is a huge user of our products. And then I would say mass, right, is right up there.
Mass retail.
Just mass, what I would say is like Walmart, Target. Okay. And then online, with the event of Amazon coming through, has been a big change in the way things are sold.
Yeah.
And then you look at some of the other ones, like drug used to be, you used to get enamored because they had 10,000 stores, but that our products are not as sold through that type of channel as much anymore.
There's been a lot of disruption in the drugstore.
Exactly.
Rite Aid and CVS.
All of them. So, I mean, the business is definitely, for us, has definitely migrated to club, mass. Hard discounters like Aldi are a player in e-commerce. And then you can fold omni-channel into that umbrella.
I asked in particular about the e-commerce because one thing we talked about the baby wipe is about packaging, and we focus in club. So much of what goes into the product is, of course, what's within the package, but the package itself is very important because when the product arrives on the pallet, it gets into its bay and it's unwrapped, and that's it.
It's got to tell a story, right?
Got to start. Exactly right. And so a lot goes into the packaging, what it says, what it doesn't say, the imagery. But in the online world, you can save costs by removing some of that. You're in a brown box.
We actually went through this exercise, and it was. I did a market visit last year into Costa Rica and Colombia, And that was one of the questions that they had asked. You know, when you look at this product, it's a very high quality. It's a very high quality box, right? Very expensive box on this, and
Relative to the total cost of
yeah, I mean, it's an expensive component.
Yeah.
I mean, it's somewhere in the range of 70 to 80.
I've been thinking like whoever's in the cardboard business, they're doing great right now. Yeah. But online share.
It's an expensive component, and you could save about half if you put it into a brown craft master carton on that, and you really don't need it for shipping. It would probably be better because, right, if you're shipping parcel post on this thing is going to get big, it's going to get scuffed and banged up on it.
Well, some companies are doing that.
Yeah,
I know P&G has adjusted a lot of their packaging.
You order from Amazon, I'm assuming everybody does, right? Well, how does that come delivered?
Brown box.
There you go.
Yeah, we just did cleaning supplies, and it was a brown box, and then the cleaning supplies is in a plastic film, unmarked.
Yeah. So there are opportunities in that area for e-commerce, and that's one of the things.
Those are ongoing conversations we have as our business grows and develops. I think we have opportunities there for sure.
Yeah. And so there's that, and then the other thing I think which is unique is you have this to be your selling story, right? But when you go online and you look at a detail page, you have much more real estate where you can put in high quality videos, all of that to go with it.
Yeah.
So,
and we put the buyers through a lot to get all the content and everything for the website. I know it's an added effort, but it's a different form of merchandising. We talk about the 6 rights of merchandising in the club.
Yeah,
it also goes for website.
Extends to the website, and it's constantly evolving.
Right condition, right content, right place, right time.
Yeah. When I think that's in the area of opportunity for PriceSmart in the future is that you can evolve your detail pages on there where you can get videos and put it in there, because I mean, we've done studies where we found that where we put video on there, nothing else changes. It increases the sales by double digits.
That's what you've seen in other cases. Yeah. That's very interesting.
It is because, well, people can interact it, right? And if they want to know what it's about and they watch it, how it works, it's powerful. I mean, who here hasn't watched a video
on their phone?
No, right? I mean, right? Everybody does.
That's right.
Especially if it's a first time purchase.
Totally. Yeah, very interesting. And I think adding a layer of complexity, how this is occurring in Latin America and the Caribbean is not exactly the same as the United States. So there's a lot of kind of following happening, but then one thing that we've seen is a lot more focus on the mobile phone versus desktop. A lot more focus on last mile delivery services. I'm kind of like Instacart here, but like the Uber Eats and Rappi.
Yeah.
In addition to our own app, those are incredibly important for the consumer, and a lot is driven by convenience because of density in cities in Latin America. In addition to out of pocket costs, but more and more people more and more families have both parents working and are living in smaller homes, and there's a lot of factors driving changes in consumption in Latin America. Yeah, very good. So thinking about just opening up the conversation more broadly around innovation, and I'm curious, Dan, we've talked a lot about specifically on consumable products, but how does your team deal with innovation? How do you make sure that all of you are staying on top of not only what the consumer demand, where the focus is, but also on product development and where technology is going and how you can best take advantage of what is possible today to provide a valuable experience for the member?
Right. Well, a couple of things. I mean, first of all, we're watching the trends. We're watching what our peers do, like Costco, Sam's, BJ's. We keep a close eye on what trends we see developing there. And we bring some ideas forward. And we also, ask for collaboration with the buying team for their ideas too. And what I think of it as an innovation funnel. So we welcome all ideas from whether it's internal buying, operations, of course, our members. Any ideas come in, we'll take them and we'll put them into this funnel. And at that point, we say no bad ideas. Let's take all the ideas and we'll vet them through that funnel. And the goal would be then at the end is what comes out of the funnel and gets actioned. So we'll use data to measure consumer trends and how big the category is. So we first want to measure, is the opportunity big enough to pursue? So there's some ideas where the product sales are very small. We obviously want to focus on bigger opportunities. So sales is a big cutoff. And then, we'll also look at kind of some initial costing and make sure we can meet the value proposition of private label. So there are some products out there, some branded products that's super competitive, and we can't really deliver a value on private label. So those we'll just pass and say the brand is delivering a great price, and we can't really improve on that too much. So some of those things will fall out. So we'll put some of those filters on it, and then come out with the best products that move the needle in terms of sales, offer great value to our members, and then we'll initiate some RFPs or quote requests with vendors, and then start requesting samples to start doing some internal product analysis.
Super collaborative process. Again, the idea of flow in from everywhere, whether it's the operators, we have members input. I think the ideas flow in from everywhere. And then we kind of just try to evaluate each piece of the puzzle, whether we can develop a product that offers value, or it's a white space that we have in the clubs. For some reason, we can't source it through a corporation. Packaging may come into it. There may be things. A lot of our countries have particular labeling requirements. So maybe we can't develop buy a product that's already labeled that meets our needs. So the innovation can come from a number of areas from what we need to develop.
Yeah, I know one area we've talked a lot about is pasta. And that's an area that I'd see a pasta product back there that, now is this one in the warehouse clubs yet?
This one's just landed in the Caribbean. So it is rolling out right now. But this one's kind of exciting because we did launch pasta.
I think it's a good example of innovation
And continuous improvement, right? So we launched a U.S. sourced pasta, and sales are okay, but it is a little bit.
It's very good.
Yeah, product's good. I would say maybe the packaging is a little clunky. It's not the best for our clubs. But we said, how can we improve on that? I mean, that's a basic pasta out of the U.S. Who's known for pasta? Italy, right? Italian pasta. So we went on a kind of a goal of trying to improve it by sourcing it from Italy. So we looked at a few vendor options there, and this new product is produced in Italy and shipped to the U.S. And the interesting thing through the whole process is we were able to get a very competitive price. So even sourcing it from Italy versus the U.S., it's going to offer better value to the member.
How's the taste?
It's good. Yeah. It's
right. That's always got to be the end of the conversation. There needs to be value. It needs to look cool. But if it's food, it's got to taste good.
Yeah.
We have a lot of that sampling that goes on here, and a lot of opinions when you get into things, even as basic as pasta, about taste on this, taste on that. So there's a lot of sampling and tasting that goes into the development on food products, just like the usage on the baby wipes.
And do we visit the manufacturing facilities where these things are?
We do, yeah. So the vast majority, we go and we visit the factory. We see there.
I haven't got an Italy trip in yet, but we'll get it. We'll get there.
Yeah, but we did send some people there to Italy. But yeah, we want to look at the manufacturing site. So that's a big piece, is to make sure that it meets our standards for food quality and safety, number one, so we can trust them to make a safe product for us. But then we want to understand their capabilities and, work with them collaboratively to make a product that is the best for our members, that stacks on the pallet. Like, this is an improvement because this will stack directly on the pallet versus the current item ships in trays and just a lot more packaging involved. This is direct stack and a lot less fingerprints. So we can work with
more productive, more efficient.
Yep.
Which turns into value.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think, that's a big important part is visiting with the vendors and being collaborative. We've been to Rich's facility, and it's great because you can see, like, on the multi-surface wipe, I think we were talking about, hey, what are the configurations we can do with that? And it came up that you can do a 4-pack or a 6-pack, but not a 5-pack, right? Which is what the vendor that current Clorox wipe is. Clorox wipe, yeah. So now we understand why, because we've seen how their lines work.
So there's a lot that goes into that equation. Again, it's not as simple as, you know what, I want to do a baby wipe or I want to do a pasta. The background and research and testing and validation that goes into it is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it sounds like fun.
The parts of it.
If you like puzzles,
Yeah.
that's you have a good skill set.
So we talked a lot about private label innovation, collaboration. I'm curious, just like each of you obviously manage a team, and you're one of the senior people at your company. You each manage a large team at PriceSmart, and one of the things I always try to cover on the podcast is leadership and management as a theme. So because we have a little time, I want to switch gears, because I think, there's collaboration between teams, and then how, the tone and the work that you're doing with your people to set them up for success. I'm just curious, maybe we can go, one by one, just talk a little bit about, like, as you think about yourself as a leader, manager, what's brought you success, and what kind of tone at the top do you try to set with your team to ensure that, they're also following through with the same commitment to collaboration, transparency, and all the values that we talk about when we think about good management?
I think it's ongoing communication and teaching. With my team, again, it's a very open dialogue. There is maybe a hierarchy in the sense of where we sit title-wise, but in conversation, that hierarchy doesn't necessarily exist. We just continue to have conversations about things and try to teach. I'm learning from my team all the time. I'm trying to teach them, and just continue those conversations, I think, is a lot of it. And then just mutual respect across the board. Everybody has an opinion. We're all open to conversations. I think that is a lot of developing a quality team.
Yeah, teaching is huge.
Teaching is huge. A long time ago, I think, as your grandfather told me, you teach, you don't train. You train a dog, you teach people. And that's something that's always resonated with me. So I don't dictate and I don't spout. I just try to have conversations and teach as we go through things.
Yeah, and there's a lot to learn. I learned a few things today already.
Good.
How about you, Rich?
I think it's a lot to what Guy said, but I also try to lead by example. I never ask anybody on my team to do something I wouldn't do myself. Right. So if I've asked them to do it, they know I've already done it. And it's just a lot about people are important, right? At the end of the day, we can talk all we want about everything else, but it really comes down to people. And if you treat the people with respect and kindness, it just goes a long way.
Indeed.
And so just try to lead by example and the other is do the right thing. Right. Even when nobody's looking.
Yeah, that's what we talk about too.
It's at the end of the day, we try to teach the number one thing for us is quality, right? We stress that. And everybody in our company has a hand in the quality of the product, right? There's not one person that doesn't have the power to shut a line down if they see something that's not going right. I mean, for us, it's just about doing the right thing.
How do you maintain an environment where people feel comfortable to raise their hand if they see a problem?
I would say it starts at the top with our president. I mean, he's fanatical about it. He's got a little plastic sign on his desk. Might have been 25 cents back in the day that was on our founder's desk. It says people are important, right? And it's all about the people. Do we make mistakes? Of course we do sometimes, right? But, you learn from them. One of the things that I'm the proudest of is we have been in business 48 years, 2,500 associates. We're a non-union facility, right? And we think that, not that there's anything wrong with unions, but we just think that if you treat people right, there's not a union. You don't need a union, right? And so
I think it's a great message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Every day, it's every day. It's just in keeping up with things and trying to do the little fun things and acknowledge and recognize. We started a program out, we call it Right, where we recognize people for doing good things. And they get nominated and they can win, awards and there's, things that come with that. So yeah, it's all the little things are, we've got a great HR department that really helps us, keeps us on the straight and narrow, and the right things to do. And
yeah, but it starts with the top, tone at the top.
Everything starts at the top.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say it's really about hiring great people and then empowering them to feel like they have ownership of their work and give them credit and give them the support they need to get the work done. I think I think it was Steve Jobs' quote was, "It would be stupid to hire smart people and then tell them what to do. We want them to tell us what to do," right? So, and that's that's kind of how I try to manage is listen to hire great people and then listen to them. And
you've hired some great people
Yeah.
in recent years that come with a lot of experience and energy and excitement to develop new things, and it shows.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I love my team. We have great people, and all this stuff is done in collaboration, and it's done by those people, not so much me. I'm just kind of
And the results
putting it all together.
Right. Yeah. Testament to the success.
Yeah. So, now those are all great answers, and I love the alignment in values between Rockline and PriceSmart. I mean, I see a lot of similarities in terms of how we think about management, how you talk about management. One thing I wanted to ask, thinking about, you said your team is in, what was it, 3 or 4 different countries? And most of your team's here, but not all. You have people in Colombia as well, and you have people in a number of different countries. And I'm curious, something that we talk a lot about at the company, and I think all companies are kind of talking about, is managing remote teams, dealing with meetings, the number of meetings on the calendar, and balancing, productive time with meetings. And I'm just curious about how that's going and how you're managing. Do you have any tips for our listeners around how to manage the number of meetings and making sure that we're exercising discipline around how we spend time, both in terms of collaboration but also in doing?
In specifics on meetings, for me, is I try to always make sure if we're having meetings, there's an agenda in advance that everybody sees, and we're gonna have topic points that we're going to cover. Otherwise, they tend to spin out of bounds. And there's great things that happen around conversations, but if we're having a set meeting and a number of people are going to be on the phone or on Teams, here's what we're going to cover. Try to have that in advance so people can be prepared so the meeting's productive when you get into it. And then post-meeting, follow-up notes. So the meeting doesn't just sit out there in the vapor, and there's something productive, tangible out of that meeting. Notes from that we can use as follow-ups. Everybody knows I'm not the biggest fan of meetings, so we really try to make sure that it's going to be productive when we have them. And if a meeting's scheduled for a half hour, hey, we're about done, unless there's some meaningful reason to continue that. Trying to stick to the timeline of meetings, respect people's time.
And has that changed with remote employees?
It has. In some ways, it's made it a little easier too, right? Because you have it on your schedule, it's listed as time, and boom, we're ready to go. The remote thing, I find it to be relatively productive because you can have meetings, everybody can be where they are. They call in, you set your meeting time, and the remotes works well from a meeting standpoint.
How about you?
Yeah, I would say, COVID sort of forced us to use these tools to work.
We were 0% remote.
Right.
And then the next day,
And
100%
remote.
yeah. And it taught us a lot. And I think we've leveraged the teams and being able to collaborate through virtual meetings really, really well. And then the tools that allow us to do artwork sign-offs and things like that. People in real time can go into the same tool and collaborate together. So we've basically been able to leverage that technology. But I think it's great because we can pop in to talk to someone in Miami or Dominican or Colombia immediately, move from one to the next. I would say one thing that, I think all of us could focus on a little bit, it's fairly tactical, but Outlook will default to a 30-minute meeting, right? Not all meetings need to be 30 minutes. It can be 10 minutes. And I think we need to probably, as a company and team and groups of people, just say, hey, agree. Hey, this topic should only last 10 or 15 minutes.
I'm a 5-minute meeting guy, so I get it. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. We're recording this not long after the new year. And one of my goals for this year is just reducing meetings, because I think a lot of them can be solved with a phone call or maybe no meeting, and so, I think about time, hours, and then people's hourly time saved by reducing unnecessary.
This meeting could have been an email is a lot of money.
Yeah, or a phone call or whatever. Is there anything happening at Rockline that you're particularly proud of, or that you look at and say, hey, that's something we did really well around kind of this challenge around asynchronous distributed teams?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's a blend. I follow a lot of what Guy said. I mean, I'm meeting with the merchants after this and made sure to send out an agenda, right? To make sure that we got the topics that we're going to cover. I always follow up with a recap of the meeting. Sometimes they're too long, but there's a lot of information that's shared, so that we have a starting point that we don't forget about things. I always like to have things on the record, and so that there's always reference on it. But we find it's a blend because so much of ours is touching and feeling, of our products. So we need to have a blend, and that's what we've done is we have a hybrid of in the office and out of the office work environment.
Yeah, that's I think where we've landed too. That at the end of the day, like merchandising is a tactile activity that you have to see, touch, feel, smell. And you got to be interacting with the merchandise, and I think also interacting with your partners, and so on.
It's amazing. I mean, my whole office is full of samples of different materials and things that.
So is ours. We need to figure out maybe a better system to get rid of.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. But I have a lot of new moms that are always, do you have any extras that you don't need anymore? And so I'm distributing those out. But it's a blend, and I would say there's no right or wrong answer. Every business has to figure out what system works best for them, for themselves.
No, I agree, and thanks, for that, allowing that digression, because, there's a lot of things I like to cover, but I think one of the things we always can be better at is being better leaders, better managers, and every guest that I've had so far has some sort of insight that I find is valuable, and I think our listeners will too. So thanks for that. So kind of, as we start to move towards close and thinking about, we've talked about a lot of different products. We talked about Rockline, about the product development process, about packaging, about detail, about cube utilization. We've talked about a lot of different topics. And I'm curious about, looking towards the future, what you're most excited about member selection, about your business, and where we can have a positive impact for our members, or for your consumers more generally, and your customers are retailers. Yeah. So maybe we'll start with Rich this time.
Well, so speaking specifically with PriceSmart, I mean, what excites me the most is working with the merchants and the private brands team to see what's next. Right, we're always working on different things to figure out how to get more sales and how to better create the value for the member. So some of the things, like for instance, that we're working on a 10 count travel pack on facial wipes that we're going to run so that they can give away for demos. One of the things that we just did is we put 20% post-consumer recycled content into the canisters for the disinfecting wipe. So we created a tile, that shows that it's 20%, and we put that on the web page. So we're always looking at how to do that and drive the business forward.
That's great. Always looking to improve.
Well, yeah, and it's crazy little things. Like one of the things that one of our guys was loading the containers, and he noticed that there was some space at the end, and so what we did is we pinwheeled a couple of the pallets at the end. And instead of having 40 pallets, we were able to, or 21, which are double stacked on 40. We were able to get 21 on the floor, double stacked as 42. And so we were able to get 5.
I got a very excited call from Rich about that. That's the collaboration and where he wants to see the success.
Right. We were able to get 5% more on that container, and you guys pick up on it. So that goes right to driving inefficiencies out of the supply chain, which then helps lower the cost, which we can pass it on to the member.
That's right. Exactly. Low costs drive low prices.
Right. So it's just the little things like that. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in the new items and all the other things. You got to always have an eye on the blocking and tackling as well.
I agree, but I think that the key to that is that no single person can do all of that. So empowering your team, and that's the reason I wanted to cover a little bit on management, because I think at the end of the day, everybody's got to be focused on that. So if it's somebody that's working on the dock, if they notice the opportunity, good ideas that make an impact can come from anywhere.
And we nominated him for one of our awards, on it, and that's what we try to do, because you're right. No one person can do everything.
No way.
And it takes it's a village, right? It takes everybody on the team to come up with these ideas.
And feeling empowered that they can raise their hand and say, hey, I think I found a way for us to do a little.
Listening, yeah, for sure, which has been implemented throughout the chain now.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah, we took 5 containers, tested it, right? And we said, okay, cut 5 containers with this. Let's ship it one to each market, make sure that there's nothing we're not seeing, right? And once we got the feedback from the 5 different countries that said, hey, no, it arrived, they took pictures of it, sent it back to us and said it arrived fine. Then the merchant said, okay, we're doing it across the board.
There you go. So the cost of freight per pallet went down a little bit.
Yeah.
5%. It was passed on them.
That's good. Hey, what about you, Guy?
I think it's for the innovation going forward, it's a neat juncture of looking at how we can be more sustainable, how we can improve things, how we can be more environmentally friendly and conscious, because it's so accepted both from a manufacturer standpoint, our members expect it, enhances the members' experience. I think that's really where I see a lot of neat things coming in the future, is how we can be more sustainable, more environmentally friendly, and improve quality and value for the members.
I agree. I think there's a lot of innovation happening just in the industry around manufacturing and production of raw materials, and for sure one of the things that's happening is in general, like the cost on those things are going down, so they're becoming less cost prohibitive, and I think that's just going to make it all the more accepted by the consumer.
For sure, yeah. Consumer, recycled content it was more expensive. It was cool to do, but the value didn't more translate. Yeah. But now that's become a bigger part of the equation, like you said, the scale is making it affordable. So those kind of opportunities, I think, are going to continue to bubble up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if one day we can, because so much of the product, rayon and polyester, are still plastic based. So much of it is still plastic based. It'll be interesting. At some point, some of these
We're working on it.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. And it'll be interesting to see how that evolves.
Yeah, there's trade-offs, right? I mean, on those things. So it's as technology changes, but I mean, I think the biggest thing is, especially for everybody that has children, right? You want to leave the world in a better place for your children, right? And so we got to start doing things to help make that come to fruition.
I agree. And companies like ours can do things.
Yeah, they can.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah.
No, we can help steer that ship for sure.
Yep. In a way that benefits consumers too.
A lot of people talk about governments, but really it's the retailers, right? You guys say this is the way we want to do it. And that will be very effective.
For sure. How about you, Dan?
I don't know if I can top those high level topics, but I was just going to,
you could just say what you think.
I was just going to say, I have a lot of optimism for the momentum that we've built with the brand. It's almost like we've, a few years ago, there was a little snowball and we've just made it bigger and bigger. And as it gets bigger, we're unlocking new possibilities, and we're doing things today that we didn't think we could do a few years ago, luggage and some of these other products.
Kitchen sinks.
We've done everything, including the kitchen sink. So,
which for listeners, if you haven't seen it, it's a great product.
Yeah.
You go check it out at your local PriceSmart.
Yeah. So, there's additional categories that we're excited to try, and new products. And I think one of the bigger ones is probably liquor and wine. So we did launch our first item this past year with a blended Scotch whiskey that's doing pretty well. And so that gives us confidence that there's some opportunity in that category. And we look around at our peers and we see Costco and Sam's and BJ.
Kirkland Signatures really led the way with great, for sure, great liquor and beer wine type products. Yeah.
So we have confidence that we think we can go that way, and there's always something over the next coming few years.
Very nice. Well, that all sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see what you all come up with. And there's a lot of room to continue innovating, and I think one of the things that's great about the club business is that it benefits everybody that's involved. It's good for the vendors, it's great for the consumers, and of course, they're the investors at the end of the day too that can benefit from us doing the right thing for our members. So, I think we're coming up on time. Firstly, thank you all for being on the podcast today. I enjoyed the discussion. I learned a few things. It was fun to look at product. Dan, Guy, Rich, great to have you with us today. And thanks for all that you're doing to improve our company, our brand, and the lives of our members through the innovation that's happening with our merchandise. And for the listeners, thanks for joining us today at the club podcast. Looking forward to seeing you on the next one. And we'll see you there. Thank you.